I think I'm dating a ghost. Not the kind that haunts houses, the kind that still eats breakfast at your table but isn't really there. His name's Eli. He's alive. Technically. He still breathes, still walks, still answers when I say his name. But lately, it feels like I'm the only one trying to keep the shape of us from collapsing. I plan our weekends. I send good morning texts. I ask how his day was. He says, fine, every time, like he's reciting lines from a script he doesn't believe in anymore. I keep the rituals going, cooking his favorite meals, folding his laundry the way he likes, because pretending feels safer than facing the truth. He's not cruel. That's what makes it harder. There's no shouting, no slam doors, no betrayal I can point to. Just absence. A quiet one. Like watching color drain from a photograph in real time. Sometimes I catch him looking at me the way you look at a stranger who happens to remember your name. I tell myself, I'm imagining it, that love can't just vanish like mist. But I can feel it. The heaviness between us. The silence that's too polite to be called hate, but too deep to be called peace. I keep trying to patch the holes with small talk, with touch, with dinner plans, but everything slips through my fingers. I'm still fighting for something he already buried. And the worst part, I don't think he even notices the funeral happening in front of him. I used to think love died slowly. Now I think it dies quietly. While you're still talking to it. 4 years ago, Eli wasn't a ghost. He was quiet, sure, the kind of man who spoke softly, as if afraid the world might overhear something sacred. But when he laughed, it felt like light spilling into a dark room. I'd just come out of a divorce that had gutted me, and he'd recently lost his father to a stroke. 2 people grieving different things, orbiting each other in the same lonely space. We met at a local art gallery. He was sketching near the window, charcoal smudges on his fingertips, while I was pretending to care about abstract paintings that looked like spilled wine. He noticed me before I noticed him. I only realized later that's how he always was. Observant, distant, almost invisible until you turned your head and found him already looking. What started as friendship turned into something that felt like healing. We spent hours talking about nothing, music, bad movies, our childhoods. He told me his father used to call him half dreamer, half shadow, and I told him that was exactly what I needed. Someone quiet enough to make my own noise feel safe. When he kissed me for the first time, it didn't feel like a spark. It felt like finally exhaling after years of holding my breath. We moved in together after a year. Our apartment became a collage of mismatched furniture and half-finished projects, a home built from scraps of 2 broken people trying to make something whole. But even then, I should have seen the signs. Whenever we argued, Eli disappeared inside himself. He didn't yell or sulk. He just vanished behind those eyes of his, like closing a curtain. I'd always chase after him, apologize first, hold him, patch things up before the silence hardened. He'd eventually come back, gentle, grateful, and quiet. And every time I thought that meant we were strong, that love was about persistence, about never letting someone slip too far away. Back then, I thought love meant never letting someone pull away. Now I know that was the beginning of the end. The change wasn't sudden, it crept in like fog. Slow, quiet, impossible to point to one single moment where everything went cold. At first, it was small things, late replies to texts, a distracted nod during conversations, a vague "I'm tired" when I tried to kiss him goodnight. He'd take long walks alone after dinner, saying he needed air. I told myself it was work stress, or maybe just winter settling into his bones. Eli had always been a little melancholy. It was part of what made him gentle. But gentle started to look a lot like gone. He forgot our anniversary that year. No argument, no defensiveness, just an empty apology. He said he'd lost track of the days, that time's been weird lately. I laughed it off, tried to lighten the mood, but inside something cracked. I doubled down. I made dinner reservations, bought him a new set of sketch pencils, even suggested couples therapy. All the things articles online tell you to do when love feels like it's slipping. He smiled politely, said he didn't think we needed help, and went back to scrolling his phone. Our conversations turned into one-word exchanges. How was your day? Fine. Want to watch something? Later. I love you. You too. Every word felt rationed, every moment stretched thin. The first real break happened when I booked a surprise weekend trip. Just the two of us, a cabin by the lake, no phones, no distractions. He said he was excited. I spent days packing, planning, imagining the version of us that would come back stronger. Then, the morning we were supposed to leave, he said he had a migraine. He'd catch up tomorrow, he promised. I kissed his forehead, told him to rest, and left alone, because part of me still believed he'd show up. He didn't. Not that day, not the next, not even a message to check in. When I got home, the apartment was spotless. His shoes by the door, his jacket folded neatly on the chair. No sign of guilt, no note, nothing. Later that night, scrolling through my phone, I found a video I'd accidentally recorded. It was me, in the cabin, holding a small cake I'd bought on the way there. I was smiling, eyes swollen from crying, blowing out candles alone. "See, babe," I said to the camera. "I made it special anyway." That was when I realized I'd started documenting proof of my own loneliness. It happened on a Tuesday. Ordinary, like most of the worst days. Eli had left his laptop open on the coffee table while he showered. It wasn't snooping. At least, that's what I told myself when I sat down to close it and the screen flickered awake. There was a folder I didn't recognize, a shared drive titled Plans. I clicked before I could talk myself out of it. Spreadsheets, budgets, apartment listings, notes about U-Haul quotes, and storage unit prices. Everything was neat, color-coded, the kind of detail Eli never used for our life together. But the "our" part wasn't there at all. It was all him. In one tab, he'd listed cities, jobs, goal, move by summer. I scrolled further and saw he'd already changed his emergency contact on his medical form, from me to his brother. It wasn't another woman. It was worse than that. He was building a new life, quietly, while still eating dinner at my table. When he came out of the shower, I was still sitting there, frozen. He looked at me, then at the screen, and didn't even flinch. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said. Not an apology, not even surprise, just flat, as if we were discussing a late bill. My voice cracked. "So you were just going to disappear?" He sighed, rubbed his forehead like he had a headache. "It's not about you, Clara. I just need a change." I don't remember crying, but my face was wet. He reached for me, rubbed my shoulder like you would to comfort a child who'd scraped a knee. Detached, automatic. I begged him to stay. I don't even know why. Maybe because leaving would make it real. Maybe because I didn't want to see how empty my life looked without him in it. He said he'd stay a little longer to figure things out. The next few weeks felt like hospice care for our relationship. We went through the motions, coffee, dishes, half-hearted small talk, but the air between us was heavy with something dying. Every time he smiled, it looked like muscle memory. Every time I said, "I love you," it felt like CPR. I stopped being his girlfriend. I became the life support keeping his memory breathing. It was a Wednesday when I woke up and realized I was alone. Not the kind of alone that comes after a fight, the kind where the silence hums differently. When I reached for his side of the bed, the sheets were cold. The closet door was open. His jackets were gone. His toothbrush, his sketchbook, his favorite mug, all missing, like someone had quietly erased him while I slept. There was no note, no text, nothing. At first, I panicked. I thought maybe there'd been an accident. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. I called hospitals, thinking maybe he'd collapsed on one of his late-night walks. No one had seen him. Then I called his office. The woman on the other end sounded confused. "Eli? He resigned weeks ago," she said. "Didn't he tell you?" Weeks ago. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. That night, I tore the apartment apart looking for clues. Receipts, letters, anything that could explain how the man I'd loved had been slowly packing up a life while I'd been planning dinner. All I found was an empty drawer where our passports used to be. I didn't cry. Not right away. I made coffee for 2. I texted him updates like he was still away on a trip. "Hope you're okay. The light in the kitchen flickers again. I'll fix it later." It became routine. A conversation with someone who would never answer. Days blurred into each other. I'd sit on the couch after work, scrolling through old messages, rereading his I love yous like an archaeologist studying a lost language. Then, one night, scrolling Instagram, I saw it. A tagged photo. Eli. Same city. New job. His arm around someone else. A woman with dark hair and a bright, open smile. They were standing in front of a mural, both laughing. He looked alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I started laughing. Hysterical, shaking laughter that turned into sobs. I must have looked insane, sitting there surrounded by the wreckage of our apartment, laughing and crying like a woman who'd just seen her own ghost. How can you grieve someone who isn't dead? I kept asking myself that. Every night, every morning. Until one day I stopped asking, because I already knew the answer. He'd been gone long before he ever left. He just finally stopped pretending. And me? I kept the pretending alive long after he stopped. I thought I was keeping our love alive. Turns out, I was just keeping its ghost company. It's been 7 months since Eli left, and the apartment doesn't feel haunted anymore. Just empty. I finally moved out last week. The walls were bare except for faint outlines where our photos used to hang. I left the keys on the kitchen counter next to the chipped mug he used to drink from. For a second, I almost picked it up, like muscle memory, then stopped. That mug doesn't belong to me anymore. Neither does the life we built. I didn't cry this time. I just stood there for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the echo of my own breathing. Then I turned off the lights and walked out. I started journaling again. At first, it was just chaos. Unfinished thoughts, scribbled blame, the kind of writing you hide from yourself. But somewhere between the anger and the grief, I started to see it clearly. I'd spent years waiting for someone to choose me again. Every dinner, every text, every apology was just me trying to earn what had already been taken away. Love doesn't die when they leave. It dies when you stop pretending they'll come back. Now I spend my evenings at a community art center. They needed volunteers, and I needed a reason to leave the house. I paint again, nothing fancy, just colors that feel like breathing. Sometimes I help kids mix paints, and when they smile, I feel something soft open in my chest. Something that doesn't hurt anymore. There are nights when I still wake up reaching for someone who isn't there, but I don't feel crazy for it. It's just habit. Habits fade. I thought keeping him close would save us. All it did was bury me with him. Sometimes you don't realize you're the only one left, until you stop talking and nobody asks why you're quiet. I didn't lose him. I just stopped keeping his ghost alive.